What is up, everyone? We are back
Hey!
shaping the culture. We got amazing guests in the house today. Listen, this podcast episode has been in the works for years.
Tell them, let's go. Tell them.
Listen, since the very beginning. I remember when you guys actually came out to Minnesota back in, was it 2017 or 2018?
Dude, we went to Best Buy and we bought a mic that day, I think.
Yes, it was early on, very early on with shaping the culture, and we had talked about doing something then, but you know, God's timing always comes.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Finally, we're able to make it happen. We got some of my favorite people of all time with us today. We got Loza and Esaias with us.
Yeah. What's up, bro?
These people I love dearly. These people mean a lot to me. I appreciate their wisdom. I appreciate their transparency. I go to them often. They're confidants. We work through things together. We got a group chat that's A1, one of my favorite group chats.
lit.
Highly confidential.
Literally the most lit group chat ever.
Highly confidential.
Very confident. There's a lot of things that are said, a lot of things that are exposed there. But I just genuinely enjoy that about them. I love their story. I love what God is doing in and through them. As a couple and individually, God is doing some amazing things through both of them. And that's something I really appreciate about them is they are pursuing the Lord in everything that they do, and they make a great team. They are supportive of one another. They care deeply about one another, and we got a lot of great things coming ahead of you guys this episode. Loza and Esaias, thanks once again for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
You don't gotta gas up like that, bro.
I know. We are excited to be on Shaping the Culture. Finally, it's been a long time coming.
Yo, can we
intro
you real quick?
Hey,
Go ahead.
I'm here for
All
it.
right, can you give me a little beat like
A beat? That's too much to ask of me.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming in at about 5'10", he is a man of God, speaker, podcaster. Most of all, he's a good friend. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Ebenezer Abu
Indeed,
Let's go.
Easy E.
Easy E, let's go.
The only one to ever do it.
The homie, the friend.
We're excited to be.
We gotta get us live right now. It's like 10:30 where we're at, so we gotta baby sleeping, but we gotta keep it live.
We're here.
We gotta keep it
I
live.
had to go through woken her up after that introduction.
Let's not lie.
Isaiah does that constantly with sneezing. That's fine.
For sure. Well, again, we've been, for those who've been following along with Shaping the Culture, we've been talking about singleness and dating in the Christian context. And so we talked about why men are single. We talked about why women are single. And now we're going to talk about some other things pertaining the dating life, which I'm really excited about. But before we jump into that, I think it would be beneficial for all of us to hear your guys' story. You guys have been married for 3 years now?
3 years. The real question is, do you want the real story or Isaiah's fabric?
There's two parts of the story.
I've already made up my mind before
He's
this
about
podcast
to lie.
started. I'm gonna let Loza run free with her version of everything. I'm gonna try my best not even to refute most of what she has to say.
Literally every time someone asks me this question, I'm like, here we go again. This guy's about to introduce.
I'm not even gonna do that today, so don't even worry.
So Isaiah and I met. I wish I knew my years appropriately. 6 years before we initially started dating.
Okay.
We met at a winter conference called Uprising. We like to call it an adult conference. It was really just a church conference up in the mountains. We met then, and it was actually very platonic, right? We had met just as friends. We both were dating different people at the time. We had come, just to kind of seek the Lord during that time. So we really didn't have eyes for each other.
I was single, but
you were dating somebody.
You were dating. I was kind of out there. I think I was kind of out there at the time.
Dating.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I was not necessarily.
Whatever. I was dating somebody, and we, so they introduced us, and we met, and there wasn't anything there. Obviously, he was a cool guy. And then I think how many years passed? 3 or 4 years had passed. We never connected, nothing at all.
Yeah.
And then I started blogging. I was kind of in a transition between college. I was about to graduate. I was in the season of like, I had just read Produce by Faith, a book by Devon Franklin, and I was transitioning into like what it meant to take faith moves. And so in that process, you know, I felt inspired to start blogging, and Isaiah had read one of my blogs and slid up in my Twitter DMs. And
so I want to establish, I can't help myself. So from here on out, I don't even want to disturb the conversation. If I feel like Loza starts telling a lie, I'm not even going to stop the convo. I'm just going to stop.
Not a lie.
Every time you hear me knock like this, that means something went left, okay? Just, and we can circle back later, all right? So just a little knock.
Stressing me out.
You can keep going.
Yeah, so he slid up in my Twitter DM. Are you kidding me?
Just keep going.
What do you mean? Some of my Twitter DMs after I had tweeted about a blog called The Book of You. That was like literally my first blog post, talking about how he was in a similar season. We connected. He asked me for my number. I gave him my email. He wanted to... Why are you knocking, bro?
I wasn't even trying to
Why
stop
are you
you.
knocking?
I would love for you to continue.
So then I gave him my email because I felt like that was a good next first step. And then instead of that, I think he said, oh, the conversation that we need to have, stop it. The conversation that we need to have is going to require more than 160 characters. This was back when Twitter was like strict on their characters, right? And so I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll give you my number. And I accidentally gave him the wrong number. And then I gave him the right number. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours. I was like, okay, I can carry conversation. And then the rest is history.
In the interest of time, I'm going to let that person slide.
And he proposed to me a year later. And a year later, that's actually not requiring
that's
of a bump.
That's true.
Huh?
That wasn't a cool.
No, that wasn't.
Yeah, because it's not.
Yeah, that story's about 90% true. Yeah, I don't refute that.
Where's the lie, my brother?
Don't worry about that. What I'll add is that when we first met the very first time, like years before,
At Uprising.
I was in a totally different space. I feel like this is an important part of the story.
Yeah.
Yes, she was dating someone. I don't think I was at the time. But more importantly, the place I was in my life was really not in line with my walk with the Lord in the way it was when we reconnected later. And I think that's an integral part of the story, which, you know, would have never, even if we were both single at that time, it would have never made sense.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't in the right place to even connect with her in that way.
Yeah.
But when we did reconnect, my eyes for her kind of opened up in a more meaningful way because of where we just both happened to be at that time. And what really helped is that, like she mentioned, she had read Devon's book. I had read Devon's book. It really influenced kind of faith moves that we were making at the time. And we kind of were making parallel faith moves, which is why when I read her blog post, it kind of like made me recognize the importance or the significance of what she was doing. And that did birth our story. Now, where things are a little bit more muddy that she didn't really talk about was the fact that she expressed her feelings for me out of thin air when I wasn't trying to necessarily talk about those things.
Serious?
Uh-oh.
Don't worry about that. We can dive in deeper if you like. And another thing that she did, which she likes to, I'm just get ahead of it. She also told me that she loved me before I said.
Oh.
On accident, bro.
But we can get back to that.
Okay.
I just wanted to put out all the laundry off the rip. So there we go.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. So you guys meet 6 years before y'all started dating. Y'all got reconnected in the same place in life. Started to talk. Was there a spark between you two initially, or what do you think kind of drew?
Can we define some, like, can we give us some working definitions? Like, what do you mean by spark?
So I actually asked that question to a bunch of people. What they
just so we can all
spark.
Speak the same language today.
So actually on Instagram, I asked the question, what do you guys define as the spark, right? So a lot of people said, number one, it's a vibe. They use a lot of different verbiage, right? It's a vibe, energy, chemistry, gut feeling, aura. Some people said that the spark was like seeing someone's personality. Another person said seeing whether or not a spark was there was like their confidence, you know, either they had like good effort or a strong sense of themselves. I think for me, if I had to define spark for myself, the first thing I probably would have said was looks and intrigue.
Mm.
And Isaiah thinks this is disputable, but I'm talking about, stop it! I'm talking about myself.
Yeah.
Isaiah was not.
Bro, she's going off the cuff. About to go off
I'm
the
not.
cuff right now.
I'll be very honest when I say Isaiah was not my cup of
Baby,
tea.
nobody believes you.
It's because,
Not one
it's
person
because
here
he loves
believes
himself
you.
so much that he refuses to believe that he is not
man,
someone's
bro.
cup of tea.
It's fine.
So naturally, like I have a, when it comes to looks, like, Isaiah is a charming guy. He's a, he's a good-looking guy. But naturally, before Isaiah came into my life, the look that I went for was a lot different than Isaiah's is. And so detail. I was like into like Hispanic, Dominican kind of like energy. So my eyes were kind of close to like Abasha guys, or even if I did entertain Abasha, it wasn't, I don't know. I just was not fully like, oh, here's my husband. He's coming packaged to me right now. You know what I mean? But what I can say was intrigue. And I think intrigue was like my definition of probably like, okay, the fact that this guy is rolling up in my Twitter DMs, asking me, actually that's very true, because I always say, I thought it was fascinating that this guy read my blogs, and not a lot of guys do that. So his interest kind of intrigued me. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is kind of different than what I'm used to. So I was kind of a little bit more open, despite, me not going directly for like, oh, this is the guy that looks exactly like my husband, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know good and well, he's lying right now, bro. Like, I was not his cup of tea either. Tell the truth, baby.
Man.
Tell the truth. I was not what he looks for.
My story is that I, like Isaac and Rebecca, when I saw my wife, it was very clear to me.
He's
there
lying
was no
to you guys.
There was no
his spirit must have told him later on. But
something just felt right. No, I mean.
What do you define as a spark for yourself?
The spark for me, so like there has to be a reason why someone catches your attention for one reason or another. I think where a lot of us, and by us I mean dudes, maybe sell ourselves short is that we limit the spark to just purely aesthetic, like purely the physical, and that is an important part of it, but I think there are so many other things that can kind of captivate and kind of initiate that spark, which was definitely the case in our sense. Like, yes, Loza is a beautiful woman, and that was an important piece of it. But what really like captivated my attention was that she was going through a similar faith move at the time, and I just thought it was like more than coincidental that we were making huge life changes as a byproduct of our being influenced by this book, and that just made the conversation really easy to get initiated. And the more I like dug into her, like in terms of like talking to her and learning things about her.
But you're talking about the initial spark.
Yeah, the initial.
As to why? When did you talk to me?
No, the blog post was what I'm talking about. Like the kind of the mental.
Hearing my voice online.
Like what you were going through your faith move process. And then also like, again, like the looks aspect, you're a beautiful woman. So like that was also didn't hurt. The other thing, which was really important for me, which I almost forgot this. What really kind of like captured my attention was that I can't remember what I saw first, but like on Twitter, I can't remember if it was before I saw your blog post or after, I noticed that she was like constantly like tweeting out encouraging things to people. And
I know what you're about to say right now.
What?
So I didn't know what he was going to say.
You need to relax, girl. She's on edge. Like, hey, everybody, she is on edge right now. You need to like just lean back. You're good. You're good. You're fine.
About to say about
You're fine. You're fine. I noticed that she was like someone that encouraged people, and like I consider myself an encourager as well. So it's like kind of something that I felt like we were like in kind in that sense, and I was drawn to that, and I encouraged the fact that she was an encourager, and it kind of organically kind of continued to evolve from there. And
which means if I weren't online, you probably would have never seen me.
For sure, I would not have. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this. If you guys didn't have that spark, whatever, like for Loza, it was intrigue and attraction. For Sias, she was attractive. She was an encourager. Her blogs. If that didn't exist, do you think you guys would have ended up together? End up together?
Well, I mean, like, what other basis do people have for getting together? You know, like,
Yeah.
there has to be, like, I forgot who were we talking. I think we might have been talking about this with somebody, but it's like just the mere fact that we are all Christians is like not. I don't know if that's enough. It's like
Not.
there's so many of us, so it's not as like basic as saying, okay, here are two
Able-bodied
two people
Christians.
just get together and there's no other considerations. I think God's more intentional about that. Granted, it's a soulmate situation where there's only one person for one person, which I know definitely disturbs my wife.
He's not my soulmate either.
Relax. But like, you know, I do think all those things are important in how and why we engage with each other. Like, I can't even fathom what that would look like otherwise. You know, like, am I understanding your question right?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure.
I think that, I don't know. I think the next question we have to ask ourselves is like, does a spark have to exist for intentional dating? Yeah, chemistry should be there. You should connect. Should the spark be there when willing to sit down with someone for a cup of coffee? I think the baseline fact that someone is a Christian and the fact that they are willing to ask, I've found myself in positions where I, outside of Isaiah's, have sat down with people for coffee if they ask, you know what I mean? Like, and that may or may not be whether or not there's a spark there. The fact that their intention alone has been a quote unquote spark. The fact that they're confident enough to approach me, the fact that they're willing to ask me, you know, I think that baseline, if I know you're a believer, why not? Like, who knows if something could result
I
from
don't know
that.
if you fully believe that.
I've done it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know if you fully believe that.
I think it's different from guys and girls. Guys are the ones that are pursuing and asking. So clearly there has to be something that's flagging for you, saying, hey, let me reach out to this girl.
Even for you, I'm saying, I'm sure there's some kind of like process that you're going through.
I think for myself, even the baseline, like, are we believers?
No, okay, but I'll give you another example. Age. I'm sure age is one. You're not gonna you like if you.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not gonna sit down with no 50-year-old.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not that simple. So let's talk about it.
I'm not gonna sit down with no 50-year-old.
And if there was no intrigue and attraction, would you have let Isaiah take you out?
That's a good question. I think that
because that was hard for you, right?
Yeah, and I think generally, you know, not all of the puzzle pieces have to be there. I think at least if one of some is there, then that's worthwhile. So I think if either the intrigue was there and maybe the looks weren't there, again, like I said, I've done that. I've sat down with people that I initially was not attracted to. And while Isaiah's I was more attracted to, he also wasn't my quote unquote image of what my husband looked like. Stop it. I actually I sat down with him, or we had that conversation. And then also, if it was looks, I definitely would probably sit down with someone. Yeah, that's true.
I wasn't sure where you go with that.
But I think very quickly, when the looks are there, if intrigue is not there, I can sift through that a lot quicker.
So I think, just to expand on that, I think something that I've observed in some of our conversations is that people are just so quick off the bat to, you know, exclude the possibility of sitting down because they are making so many assessments from a distance. Now, the reality is no one is advocating for people to end up or get with someone they don't feel an attraction, a vibe, or whatever with. But I'm saying sometimes it takes you kind of sitting up close and having a conversation, or maybe peeling back a layer or two to really get a sense of who somebody really is. Because otherwise, you sell yourself short from not even really getting a true sense of what's going on because you like made your judgment call from like 50 feet away.
Oh yeah. via social media. A lot of people are seeing like people's online presence and like that's not someone's personality. Yes, while they probably take good pictures or whatever, don't take good
Because it works
pictures.
both ways.
Yeah, like they very well could be a good person.
So why do you think we put a heavy emphasis on finding a spark via social media or online dating? I mean, that's the world we're actually headed in right now. Is you know,
Correct.
what's their Instagram page looking like? What's their Twitter looking like? What's their LinkedIn looking like? Right? There's, if you're on different dating apps, it's it's just primarily your physical looks or what have you. But a lot of the times, like even now, a lot of people are getting asked out on dates online, and so a lot of where the spark happens today is online. So how should we navigate those spaces? Because it is hard to see who somebody truly is online. And even for me, speaking as a pastor and a podcaster, that can either help or hurt, because based on people's preconceived notions or their experiences in the church or their experiences in real life, they can put an image on you that might not even be your reality, but because of the name or the title, they run with it. And so, how do we navigate that? I mean, this is, I low-key miss the days where, you acquire the spark in person, but now, a lot of it is happening online. That's just where the dating world has kind of changed.
So I'll say, again, going based off of a poll. So on Instagram, I did ask a poll, like, if that spark is not initially there, how likely are you to sit down with somebody for a cup of coffee, right? And so out of like 600 plus 630 responses, the results are actually 50-50. 50% of the women said no, they would not sit down. 50% of the women said yes, if that spark was there. Let's say assume for the 50% that said that they would, when I asked, well, what do you define as a spark? The number one answer, while it was energy, while it was chemistry, gut feeling, the second one was personality. And I just thought it was really interesting because I was like, how much of a person's personality or, vibe can you get from an online presence? And I think that's where a lot of the disconnect happens, is because online reality and in-person reality are two very different things. You know what I mean? While your online personality should reflect a lot of who you are and you should post for, like very honest reasons, it makes it tough to navigate and to filter through who's being real, who's not being real. And so, I don't know. I think that is something that should be taken into account when people are just saying, oh, well, this person's online presence, or they don't have enough followers, or let's, whatever the case may be. Like, I don't like their vibe online. I'm not even willing to sit down, or the way that they slid up in my DMs. It's just like, how much are we really giving each other a chance?
Well, I think the reality is that can only ever be a starting point, right? Like your online presence, your online persona can, like you said, maybe give somebody a reason to open up the door for further conversation, but eventually it's going to have to result in you guys assessing things in reality. Like, I guess catfishing is a thing, but like we're talking about people actually engaging with each other after the initial, kind of spark comes from an online presence. I think the converse, which maybe we should think about, is how about for the people who aren't given that initial shot because their online persona isn't reflective of like themselves, what they would have hoped, or maybe it doesn't really clearly, show who they really are. Like maybe this person's super cool in person, but like isn't really online like that. So like their presence isn't really,
well, you know what I mean?
So you might sell yourself short for something like that. So, to that, I would say maybe, it's worth being a little bit more open-minded to give somebody a shot that, you can't assess clearly from a distance, because your online presence, profile, all that is only a starting point and might not even be a clear starting point.
One thing I also will add is what I appreciate the online, the online reality or the online realm for is giving us, we've discussed this, ECE, like it's a double-edged sword, giving us access to a greater amount of people than we do in our immediate circle, in our immediate world, you know what I mean? And so while that said, it should also not keep you from being more closed off because you're worried that someone's sliding up in your DM after you've already prejudged them, you know what I mean? If it were not for Twitter, Isaiah said, I would not have fallen into his radar. Like that would not have happened. And I'm grateful that it did. It made us kind of fall into each other's radar and be aware of each other and go from there. You know what I mean? So
I think it's a net positive overall. Where it could be stifling is, there's plenty of ways it could be stifling, but overall, it's, I think, a net positive, I would say.
For sure, for sure. Well, let's kind of like transition here. What if there was an initial spark, right?
There was or was not?
Huh?
There was or was not?
There was. But as time went on, that spark dwindled. However, the person is amazing, either a woman or a man of God, has great character. Just even personality is amazing, but there isn't just that spark anymore. What would you say to that couple, or what would you say to those that are finding themselves in that predicament?
What's the basis of your relationship?
Yeah.
I can't tell if it's our internet or what, but like you keep cutting out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Yeah.
What you said, what's the basis of your relationship?
Yeah. So like no solid or meaningful relationship can endure just based off of a spark. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I think the spark is an entryway, but like it needs to be founded on something more meaningful after that initial kind of, introduction. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think any relationship that is sustaining itself off of like this initial vibe, yeah, of course it's going to cool off at some point. Like, things are, you can't, it's not always going to be like the same feeling, but that's why your relationship has to be rooted in something, deeper in order for it to sustain the trials that will inevitably come,
Yeah. While that said, I still think, because I'm thinking of like people that you get rooted, you have a solid foundation, but I think chemistry is an important thing. And maybe like you might have the initial spark, you get in the relationship, or you start dating, you determine whether or not this person works or fits you. And then you come to realize that, I don't know, this isn't the best for you. Like while it's basic, and yes, while it's company and it's a good person, does this person make you better? I think these other questions kind of come into question, and should not be dismissed. You know what I mean? Like that's probably how I would define like the vibe or the energy or chemistry, gut feeling. If you're not feeling like you're lucky to be with this person, again, this is like, thanks. Siri's trying to get in our conversation.
Siri wasn't feeling that.
Yeah, I think it becomes challenging. Again, this opens up a whole Pandora's box when it comes to like,
can I push back on that?
Discussing, yeah.
So what I would say to that is if you felt the vibe in the first place, then like why are we saying that the vibe that you felt in the first place is no longer valid?
Correct.
Like if you felt it once, doesn't that mean that there is the capacity for chemistry?
Like maybe, for example, if I thought someone was intriguing, and then we start talking and I realize they're a solid Christian, and then we, kind of, which I've been to that place, like they're a solid Christian, we look good on paper, we start dating, then the intrigue just kind of disappears as I realize we actually don't vibe like that. We don't connect on that level.
Did you ever connect on that level?
I think maybe in the beginning in an effort to figure each other out, yeah. And then you get to a place where you're like, actually, we don't vibe like that. We don't connect. I think it's okay to close that chapter and move on. But I think the thing is just making sure it's not just about a feeling. It has to be more than that. So when it comes to like chemistry, do we connect? Are we aligned? Do we agree on a lot of things in life? Those are different than, do they make me feel special? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you can't go based off of a feeling because feelings are fleeting. And you can't rely on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why I want to ask the question. If let's say the intrigue or the spark dwindles, does that mean a lot of what we based our initial spark on was a projection of who the person could be versus who they actually were, over who that person actually is or who we want them to be? Like that's kind of like,
oh, bro, I'm sorry. I don't think we were ready for this, bro. We'll see you, dog.
Yeah, because like when I'm thinking about the spark, I'm thinking, man, I think it's really subjective because a lot of us have, our emotional intelligence are in a different. There's a spectrum, right? And then our expectations look different depending on our past. Our hurts look different depending on our past. What we expect from the opposite sex, let alone that individual, can vary depending on our past. And so how much of who the person we're interacting with are we actually excited about?
That's real.
First and foremost, what I would like to advocate for is everyone to get therapy. Okay.
Be real.
No, seriously, because I mean, we for example, we're in therapy together for marriage counseling, and part of why I say that is because we need to have a clear sense of who we are past the layers and how that informs the way in which we interact with each other. So
Correct.
to your point, I think we're very capable of projecting things. So, we kind of, sell ourselves short or maybe shoot ourselves in the foot trying to engage in meaningful relationship when we don't realize all the handicaps that we have along the way, So I think to your point, yeah, all those things are very, very possible. We're very capable of those things, which is why we need to be as whole as possible and try to be as aware of all of the things that maybe we're coming into the relationship with, because those things will inevitably, play a role, so that when they do start happening, we can call them out for what they are. And we can also be aware of, maybe we're like, not only are we projecting, but maybe we're using a defense mechanism. Maybe we've never been this close to somebody before, so we start pushing them away and we start blaming it on other things. Things that, we might rationalize for ourselves to say, hey, this is the other person doing these things, but in reality, it could be a form of self-sabotage or whatever the case might be, So the heart is deceitful, very deceitful above all else, So that's my immediate thought on that.
I also think it's very important to be, again, therapy helps that, but the importance of self-awareness is important and making sure that, again, taking this back to the online platform, who you're projecting yourself to be aligns with who you actually are. You can't fault somebody for not connecting with the real you if you're not the real you online, or you're not the real you to yourself. You know what I mean? So I think self-awareness, self-confidence comes in just owning up to yourself. That way, when you're dealing with another person, it's two real people dealing with each other. You know what I mean? Versus your image versus my image, and then people just getting lost in that.
Yeah. So good. So I got a personal question for you guys. Do you guys remember when the spark started to fade in your relationship?
It ain't never faded, bro. What are you talking about? It's a setup.
Still alive.
It ain't never faded.
Well, it never has.
Well,
how you keep
that he's exaggerating.
No, I mean, like, I'll speak for myself. I am still deeply in love with Loza, and
that's so
nice. And like, there are random moments where like it manifests itself in different ways, like whether it's seeing Loza with Selah, or just remembering, Selah's our daughter, by the way, for those who don't know, or just like seeing the different things that Loza does to try to do something for our family, or whatever it is, that like all the different things that I've seen in her from the very beginning that made me fall in love with her in the first place. When I see different glimpses of that in different parts of our life, it just always brings me back, and it kind of motivates or inspires that initial sense. But at the same time, as we continue on in our relationship, sometimes we do have a tendency to let things kind of become a little bit more mundane, or feel like everyday life. And remind me what the initial question is before I veer off too far off track.
Do you feel like you might lose the spark in our relationship?
Do I feel like we can lose it?
Or have we lost it, right?
You guys lost, and if so,
so it's not, I don't feel like the same, the level of butterflies that I felt like when I would first like go visit Loza, or she would come visit me, or like we first started dating, it's not like that on a day-to-day basis, so I don't know if we measure spark by that like measurement. No, it's
like
not
the
the same.
chemistry, the vibe.
But like but we still have fun every single day. Like we make each other laugh every single day. We also fight regularly, but that's just like that's a part of like the growth and the ups and downs of relationship. I think it would be super weird if like, two married people were just kind of floating around on cloud nine every single day. Like I think part of what it means to grow and mature and to, really do life together is to experience the ups and the downs and every range of experience and emotion. So yeah.
I think that, again, if you make the spark about a feeling, feelings are fleeting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Butterflies are not consistent. Sometimes it's a slow burn of a love that we have for one another, a deep understanding, a sacrificial love in certain seasons. You know what I mean? That we are cognizant of. But I think that that's challenged to that. I put so much weight on just sparks being there, because at the end of the day, whether it's not even like some of the comments that people said, like whether it's a vibe or an energy, the second thing they said was a personalities even change, when you're going through. I remember TD Jakes had once said that, like, even him pursuing his wife, he can never have pursued her fully, because at every single moment, she's a different person. She's a different person in this moment than she was the second before that. Loza in motherhood, Loza in labor, Loza in motherhood, Loza in motherhood plus 1 day, Loza in motherhood plus 2 days. I'm a different person at all times, And while I'm not, advocating for like multiple personalities, I'm saying that we change. We're human. There are ebbs and flows to the complexities of humanity, that when you choose your person, you're saying, I'm willing to ride with that, I'm willing to rock with that. So you can't base it all on a quote unquote spark. Again, while it's great for like the dating to catch someone's interest initially, there might be even certain seasons where, like I said, looks and intrigue. Some days, like looks wise, I'm looking bummy, bro, and he's looking bummy, and it's not the same. That's not to speak for yourself. There are days you look bummy too. Or days that, in terms of intrigue, that while I'm always interested in Isaiah, there are moments where, you become sometimes selfish and like consumed in yourself. And I don't know, again, things change and you have to give room for that. So, that's what
I know, Easy, we talked about this briefly too, but I think there is some kind of like mischaracterization of like what relationships are like when we look at like the rom-coms and all these different things that just, project what relationships are supposed to look like, when in reality, this is just like a 1 hour, 30-minute movie that's given us a highlight reel of like, they're coming together. And I don't know, I feel like that can also kind of like color people's expectations off like what things are supposed to look like. Yeah. That being said, I actually really like you. Not only I love you, I really do like you. So I enjoy being around her, and we have a lot of fun together. But but it's like I don't want to paint a picture as if like things are always supposed to be rosy, because obviously they're not. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta be into the person that you're with, but it's like not always gonna be like floating on cloud nine.
Yeah, that's good.
For sure. I think this speaks to what you were saying earlier about building a relationship on something else, something more stable, something that's a bit more stronger. Why do you think that, we get surprised then when we either are further along in the dating relationship, or let's say we get married and the spark isn't the floating on cloud nine, and you're just kind of left there thinking, what did I get myself into? Why do you guys think we're building our relationships on something that isn't foundational? Even when we think about it, when we think through what we even look for in that initial spark, it's not necessarily, for the most part, foundational or important to what makes a relationship work and what makes a relationship thrive. How do we get to that place where we say, okay, this is dope, this is great, but I want to look for something that will help me in the purpose that God has for me. I want to look for something that will encourage me to serve and lay my life down for my partner. I want to look for something that will help me grow with my partner, someone that will help me see a side of God that I've never seen before. Like all these other, I mean, we can go on and on about foundational stuff, but do you guys believe that we're building relationships on things that aren't foundational? And maybe that's bleeding into our initial dilemma with why we're not sitting down and grab coffee with someone.
Yeah, that's good.
Sure. Man, I think I feel like there's like somewhat of a dilemma. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think, again, we're talking about this from the context of like Christian relationships, right? So the assumption is that, you know, everybody is intentional, they have pure motives, and we're working towards the same thing, right? That's one assumption, okay? Sometimes there's a misalignment of those intentions. Maybe both people aren't completely on the same page in the same way that, you know, one person is.
Yeah.
But is I feel like sometimes when we're first kind of entering in this space, trying to assess things with these intentions, sometimes people come in with a little hot with like, you know, what the expectation is. Like, just because you've entered into this space of like, oh, let me see what's going on here. Now we've all of a sudden drifted into, oh, we are putting all this weight on us and where this is going. I feel like it's difficult. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I feel like it's difficult. I feel like it's difficult to, in the Christian context, to date intentionally without putting so much pressure.
As in marriage.
Yeah.
Correct.
I don't want to say the N word like that so hot, but you know, I feel like it's difficult because if people want to be intentional, but at the same time, sometimes you're so intentional that like
you miss out.
You could scare the whole operation because if we're getting a little too, you know what I'm saying? We're getting a little too, you know, we're a little too gung ho about where this is going. When I think we have to afford ourselves some freedom to say, hey, I would like to have coffee, but just because I had coffee, it doesn't mean I'm ready to get married. It just means like I would love to see what's going on here. And then from that space, if something organically grows, amazing. And if it doesn't, it's also cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
what do you guys think plays into? I don't know, those if you on the poll got some answers to that. But what's that threat? Like, you know, why is it that we take it so seriously where we, you know, ruin our chances of something beautiful?
As to why they don't give people the shot?
Yeah. I know you guys brought up the idea of taking it way too seriously. But are there
seriously meaning like certain parties will be a little too motivated for marriage first type of thing? Or
I don't have the exact details, but a lot of women did say that what determines whether or not they're willing to give you the shot, the number one answer was the approach, the pursuit, what that looks like. So if someone's coming on heavy-handed, and I feel like maybe it's generally the opposite. Maybe they're coming on too heavy-handed or they're coming off too light, right? So they're coming on too heavy-handed in that you're coming in like you trying to wife me up and I'm just trying to figure you out. We ain't there yet, brother. You know what I mean? But or you're coming at me and you're just, someone did say that, I want to read the exact response, but they had said like, you're coming at me just to like ask, rather than asking me out for a date, you're just here to text and chit chat and chill. Like that approach alone will keep someone from not giving someone the shot. So either they're playing it too heavy and talking about being a wife, or playing it too light and treating me too casually. When really the Goldilocks that someone said was, is someone seeing how we're aligned, and then are they intentional? That was an exact verbiage from someone, and I was like, that's actually really great. Like, can I see that this person's into pursuing me or trying to ask me to give them the shot because they think we're aligned and they're being very intentional in pursuing me, which is true. Because even for me, the reason I maybe gave Isaiah the shot is, you know, I do kind of see that we're aligned in that the stuff he was tweeting, from what I had vaguely remembered of him years prior. We can't win out here, folks. We can't win out here. To also how intentional he was about, you know, like, hey, like, let's have this conversation on the phone or whatever. I think that did matter, and I was willing to give him a shot versus someone being like, "Yo, you real cute."
I think maybe
You
the
know what I
good way to
mean?
put it
Or,
is intentional, but
"You're
low
my
pressure.
wife," which we've gotten some of those.
Intentional but
before,
low
so-
pressure. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
intentional low pressure. That's good.
It's like you don't have to make it so high stakes, but it's like I'm not just
I'm
like
clearly feeling you 'cause I
casually.
think
I'm
that
like
we're aligned.
I'm asking you for a reason, but it's like
Yeah,
it's also I'm not trying to make this like life or death type of thing.
right.
Yeah.
Let me see. I wanted to read you guys some of the reasons as
It's
to
man, I even
why.
hear myself talking, and I was like, man, this is.
It's
I'm glad
nuanced.
I'm glad I'm not in the game anymore.
You're
you know what I'm
rough. Don't play people
glad
like
I'm
that.
not in the game
No,
You
it's
get-
more fun out here in these streets.
anymore.
It is. I just feel like it's a matter of just being intentional. Because don't make us that old. We were out here
I'm just
No,
just
I've
just
heard this to you
recently.
multiple times. The game has changed. It's not what it was.
Let me see if I can pull it up. So so the question was, how do you decide to give someone a chance or not? So I'll just give you a brief rundown of a couple answers that we got.
Yeah.
It said, depends on the initial connection, when the first conversation flows easily, their approach, and if you think there is potential. Some people said, haha. Let me see, flow of conversations, following instincts. Someone says, I pray. Connection, intuition. What I tell you was, by the effort, you know.
I don't see anything wrong with any of these answers.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, so a lot of it is, someone said, intentionality, even in the initial friendship process. So a lot of what it is, I wanted to read you the one that I thought was funny. I do my pre-stock safety. Also, I'm not dating you if you follow booty models or have no male friends.
And you heard that, gentlemen. Unfollow the booty models.
That's no
a deal
place.
breaker.
People out here stalking, you know. So
That's a pro tip. That's a pro
it
tip.
says their approach can make or break the deal and their reputation. So a lot of it is, really found in that initial pursuit. Yeah.
We talked about this off air, but like Asaya said, there's nothing wrong with these answers. I feel like this is pretty legit.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Because if people were really moving like this, there'll be a lot more dates going on, a lot of more relationships.
I mean, granted, her poll was like 50-50.
Well, the poll, no, that was a poll as to, that's true. That's true. The other poll that I had asked was, if that spark is not there, how likely are you to date someone or sit down for coffee? And out of the 630, it was 50-50. 50% of them said they would. And probably the 50% that said they would are the ones that probably answered that next question.
We've had multiple conversations with unnamed women this week.
Yeah.
And I have been shocked.
Yeah.
And I mean shocked at how they have not been willing to at least give somebody a shot.
Wow.
And these are some decent brothers out here.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, what is going on?
Yeah, I wish I could say that that's just Isaiah's, but after watching Millionaire Matchmaker, I've just believed that I'm made to be someone's matchmaker, and I want them to name their future child out of me. So I'm very intentional about playing Cupid. I have a Rolodex of eligible, women that I keep a log of, and eligible bachelors, and seeing how I can connect people. And even then, when I try to pair people up, a lot of the times it's very eligible guys that I'll see, and I'll present the idea. And a lot of the times,
I like how she just talked about this with a straight face and really
What
tried
do
to
you
present
mean?
herself as a true matchmaker,
I am a true
by
matchmaker.
profession.
I am a true matchmaker.
She's trying to get a
Hit
Netflix
me up,
show, bro.
folks.
That is hilarious.
If you need my
That is
assistance, hit me
hilarious.
up. I've got a list going. I even entertained the idea. I was like, Isaiah, we should just do
I'm not in this
an
conversation.
episode of The Bachelor or an episode of The Bachelorette, and just get my whole Rolodex and just see if we can just start getting people to actually connect, because I really think it's a problem about giving each other shots, like on both ends. You know what I mean? So
I do agree with that part. I think people need to be a little bit more open, because I think a lot of people are missing out because they just are
taking it too seriously or
either
taking
serious,
it
or
too
they're making
light.
assessments from a distance where they're not fully getting the picture.
Yeah. You guys answered the question. I was about to just ask you guys, what do you think needs to happen? And
The
yeah.
episode of The Bachelor, hosted by Lozeus, you know what I mean? I'm serious about that idea. So if you guys like that idea, hit me up. Let me know. Might see
I didn't know.
one come through.
let me ask you this question, because I know you kind of had some conversations from the male perspective and the female perspective.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like there's more at least within like the Christian community, do you feel like there's more reluctance on the side of men or women as it relates to giving the other sex a shot in that sense?
Yeah, surprisingly enough, I think it happens on both sides equally. I think the men are as guilty as the women. I think that I actually believe sometimes the men can be worse just because, we are inundated with options. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you always are thinking about what's next or who could possibly come your way. Not to say women don't do this either, but for me, I've just seen a lot of men pass up on really dope women of God, simply because they don't want to lose their freedom or maybe a relationship would be a threat to something better or what have you. But I've also seen it where I've had some sister friends who have overlooked a lot of dope men of God, simply because, and I kid you not, like, I know we joke around, but something as simple as the dude's height, you know what I'm saying? Like, if he is under a specific height, like, it's just, there's no go. And yeah, I think we're both petty. I think men and women are both petty. And I think we're looking for Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. And I think in one of the episodes, Fikru said something really deep where he said, if we didn't have the option to get on a flight and go anywhere in the world, if our only community was the community that was in front of us in real life, I think there'd be a lot more relationships happening. But I really do think that what if something better comes along the way holds us back from really giving people a chance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, that's the world that our parents came up in.
Yeah.
The most technology our parents had was a pager, so they made it happen with who was at their church or their neighborhood or their friend group.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's where it all happened. So
exactly.
I mean, it's a gift and it's a gift and a curse. It's a gift and a curse.
I was gonna say that.
And we're beneficiaries of that same technology we're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Well, also, that the fact that it is giving us access to so many people. Yeah. Why are there you're right, less relationships happening? I feel like knowing that we have access to so many different people from so many different corners of the world, we should be taking advantage of that rather than using that as a deterrence from making the connection. So
and I think what that exposes is our idolatry. I think ultimately we're worshiping self in that, and we think that it's just like, what makes me the most happiest? What what gives me the most pleasure? What gives me the most satisfaction? And you guys can probably speak to this better than I can, but marriage, it is happy, but in a lot of ways, the Lord uses it also for holiness. It's not necessarily
for sure
maximum intention.
Yeah. And I think that, for me, even as a single guy, I think the temptation is to believe that who I marry will make my life better. And that's not necessarily always the case. I'm sure they'll make my life better in a lot of ways, but it'll also be a lot of death to self and a lot of sacrifices and a lot of laying down of my life and picking up my cross. And so, I think we're just trying to serve ourselves and all of this. And I know you and I, all of us have talked about, rom-coms. I know, Sias, you hinted at it just briefly, but I think like rom-coms in a lot of ways have hurt us, and it's painted a picture for us of a reality that for the most part doesn't exist. I mean, when you think about a movie, it's an hour and a half. And there are so many things that need to be communicated within a movie, so you don't get the reality of everything that makes up a relationship. And so you're going to get the highlights. And I think, the classic line, we compare our highlights to other people's highlights to our lowlights, and we end up depressed. And so I think part of the problem is we're not really realistic about what it is that a relationship entails and what it is that is going to take on our behalf to make a fruitful relationship happen. So
Yeah. And I mean, I think, yeah, while I do believe that's true, I think there's a part of me that also believes in asking yourself, fundamentally, God's design for relationships, you're right, is for holiness. It's for making us better. And that's where some people will say, oh, well, it's opposites attract. Well, it might be two people. Isaiah and I are very similar. But still, the challenge of men and women, we're designed to sharpen each other. We're designed to bring out holiness with one another. And I think that in your choosing process, you have to be willing to say, this is a person I'm willing to go through that process with, you know? So I don't think that, and I'll tell you, back when I was in college, kind of comically, someone had like, you know, now this is why you have to be very careful about what you say. The Lord told me. I'm not here about that business, but someone that I actually respected was like, you know, the Lord spoke to me, and so is your husband. Yeah. And your girl wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it, but I was like, Lord, I was at a place where I was like, obedience over everything. And so I was like, if this is your will for me, God, I'm willing to do it. And so I literally entertained, you know, talking to this guy. We talked for a while, and I was like, Lord, this can't be the business. Like, this not like all this process of working through things and like becoming holy is something that's promised. That's also the covenantal agreement that exists between a husband and a wife. In the dating realm, that's your place to pick and choose what works for you. Yeah. Once you enter into that covenant, then you're working that out. Yeah. But I was like, I don't think God designed it for us to be miserable as we're just lodging ourselves to somebody we don't connect to and saying, okay, I guess we can work at this holiness thing together. No, I think that there's a beauty in the fact that God gives us free will, that God gives us interests and things that make us come alive and things that make us joyful, and finding someone that, you know, is purposed similarly to you, someone that's going to pursue the same things you're going to pursue, which should be the Lord, someone that's going to, someone you can have fun with. I don't think there's any harm whatsoever in that. So I think that's why the dating process is so intentional. One, don't give it so much weight in that you're not working out the marriage things while you're dating. Let that be known. But while you're dating, it's also important to be intentional to ask yourself, could I see myself going through the trenches with this person? Like, is this someone that I could see that with? And that should be where you make that decision from. So.
For sure. No, that's so good. I love it. I love it. I feel like we can stay on this topic for another hour.
Honestly.
We won't do that. I wanted to ask you guys one last question. What advice would you give those in the dating world right now? In light of everything we discussed, what's kind of on your guys' hearts, your minds? Like, what would be your encouragement to those that are
I'm just joking. Go ahead.
I will speak on behalf of dudes.
Yeah. That's a good take.
Yeah. No, actually, I'd like to speak on behalf of all women, okay?
Okay, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, man. So, like, especially given the world that we live in, where we have everything at our fingertips. You know, I've seen a lot of my buddies, you know, even from college, like, you know, just go through the process of like even finding a girl that they're really into, and then only to lose interest in a sense because they feel like there's something better out there for them. And that becomes like a very cyclical thing that eventually gets you nowhere, you know? So what I would suggest is to really understand fundamentally what it is at the core that you are really looking for in a partner. Understand what your values are, understand what your purpose is. So then,
ask if you actually are looking for a partner.
Yeah, be honest, even be honest about that. You know, like some people just aren't even there yet, and that's totally fine too. That's important. But once you really understand where you're at and where you're coming from and what you stand for, then if you do find somebody who happens to be in alignment with those things, then it's, I think you give yourself a lot more of a better chance to start something meaningful with this person rather than just moving on again and again, you know, because like we have to give ourselves a basis for why we would move forward with one person versus another. So I think only when we understand our core values, what our intention is, can we even have the shot of pursuing something meaningful. Otherwise, if we're kind of just like, you know, haphazardly going about the process, then why not, start over and try something different again and again, and thinking that you'll find what you're looking for when you're not even really sure in the first place.
I'm actually curious, what would be your advice to women?
I was totally joking. I'm really not here to speak on behalf of women ever.
Not on behalf of women, but from what you see.
Because women speak for themselves.
There you go. That's PC.
I know, be PC.
No, okay.
But like in terms of like all our sisters, all our cousins, all our friends out there, what would you?
I would say maintain your standards. Never give in terms of like settling whatever you've established in your mind, whatever that means for you. But at the same time, I would allow yourselves to be open to maybe giving a shot to a dude that you might have made preconceived judgments about from a distance. Because I think you'd be surprised, like this whole idea of attraction that we talk about, I think can really be misconstrued from a distance. Like once you kind of let someone close enough with some discernment, I think you might find that person's actually attractive in a way that you never anticipated, because of you finally got a chance to have a conversation with them one-on-one, and you're like, oh, actually this person's vibe is cool. I never would have got that sense from a distance, and take it from there. And if then don't put so much pressure on yourself to think that you owe this person anything, because you don't.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then for myself, I would probably say 3 things. Number 1, be yourself. I think that it's a disservice to yourself and to the other person to not be yourself, because you won't know who you're dating, nor will you know what you expect of yourself. So be yourself includes becoming self-aware, knowing yourself, knowing what you're looking for, being honest with yourself, so that you can be honest with the next person. The second thing I would say for women is don't take it so seriously. Don't. I mean, if you're putting that much weight on this dating process, you're just you could potentially miss out. Like if like I said, Isaiah wasn't my initial cup of tea, but and
see, what's great about this is I purposely didn't knock, but she knocked for me with her eyes.
I didn't.
So let's just do that.
I was just waiting for him because I was so convinced. It's PTSD, bro. But yeah, while that's the case, like I would have missed out on a good man. You know what I mean? Like had I just dismissed him, and I think there were other things too that played a factor in it. And I think one thing that I had to learn very early on about myself and had to tell myself is don't take yourself, so seriously, Loza. Just let it flow. See where this could lead. See what happens. Just build and if anything, at least a good friendship was built out of this. You know what I mean? And so as I continued to do that, it just kept working out, in a greater way. And then more and more peace started coming. So that was the first thing. First thing was like be self-aware, be yourself. Second thing was, ladies, don't take yourself so seriously. Don't put so much intention, or not intention, but don't put so much pressure on yourself. And the third thing is, men, put more intention, be more serious.
Ain't nobody asked.
I gotta do it either way. For ladies, lighten up, and for men, bring some weight to it. You know what I mean? So like,
there are a lot of intentional dudes.
There's so many. But I will say there are so many eligible women, and I think it's worthwhile. Again, as women mentioned, the approach or the pursuit mattered a lot to them. So look at the women that you feel like you align with and intentionally pursue them. Don't make this all about looks. Don't make it all about what you see online or their social media presence. Like if you're just going for that, you might miss a quality woman. You know what I mean? You can have looks, but it takes the character of a woman to really polish and to shine a man from behind the scenes. You know what I mean? And you're not always going to see that online. So if you just want looks, that's just a trophy wife or whatever the case may be. Looks fade. But a woman fears the Lord is to be praised. So
future in there.
That's my Proverbs 31. Okay. All right.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you guys gave some great insight and some great wisdom. I'm going to be watching this over and over again, just because there were so many good things that were said. Thank you guys so much for taking the time. Y'all are brand new parents. You guys got a lot of things on your plate, but to make time for this podcast means a lot. And so thank you for gracing.
Long overdue, man.
Yeah, we love it. We're waiting for a bunch of weddings. Invite us. We'll crash, whether you want us to crash or not. We love you guys. Thank you for having us, Easy. Keep doing your thing. Y'all need to be on the lookout for this guy,
doing,
bro.
Man.
Like,
up and
he
up,
is
bro.
doing
It's on the
his
up and up.
thing. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Means a
We
lot.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you, family. I hope this blessed you. Hope this encouraged you. Until next time, peace and grace.
Peace, man.